Grand Rising, everyone. Grand Rising on this great Thursday Rising, June 6, 2019 at 8:10 a.m. Hope everyone's rising is going well.
Grand Rising to the relatives. Peace, peace.
Peace, everybody. Peace, y'all.
Everything's moving.
So, all those out there in the chat, welcome. We look forward to finishing up the 501c versus tax exempt conversation today. We have approximately 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 left to go over. So I want to send a grand rising to Doodle Vision, Original Tiller, Carrie Bay, and anyone else that I missed. Oh, grand rising, Copper Color Queen.
Peace, y'all. Grand Rising this Thursday. Beautiful Thursday.
So, how was everybody's evening yesterday? After we got done with the show.
Another long, interesting, informative evening.
Okay.
To say the least.
Anything interesting that you like to share with us there, Bones?
Well, basically, the community spotlight. We were finna get back on them. You know, we behind on a couple of them. But this week's we have Miss Leanne from Carter's Little Sheep on this community spotlight, and she'll be letting people know about her genealogy and also how she applied the information of the 501s to benefit her business and the community that she's in. So, so we'll have someone who actually uses the information as a benefit to show people how it works and how they can apply it towards themselves.
And she runs a daycare right now, currently, correct?
Yes.
And so
By listening to the show, she just adjusted her business off of the things that we were basically bringing to the forefront.
Okay.
Letting people know how to do it, and there's ways that you can become tax exempt, or there's ways how you get funds and mechanisms for helping the community and stuff. So not just telling people are actually taking the information and applying it and bettering themselves on a day-to-day basis.
So, at the risk of sharing too much, I say that tongue in cheek with air quotes. So, basically what you're saying is her for-profit, I'm assuming it was an LLC, is going to be now transitioning into a 501k, which is a tax-exempt nonprofit daycare center.
Yes, you are correct.
So let me ask you this. What are there any benefits that she would be privy to automatically from switching from a for-profit to a nonprofit?
Oh, automatically, because she serviced the community. Okay. So by her doing that automatically, and basically the hours that she watched the children, it opened up for a lot of benefits, a lot of resources and benefits automatically. So.
Okay, cool. So she doesn't necessarily have to wait for the tax exempt status to come back before she can start benefiting immediately from being a 501c, or in her case, a 501k.
No, time she put the paperwork in and it changes over, so you can start accessing a lot of the benefits.
Now, is there one benefit that she could access that you want to share with the chat?
Basically the first one that she's doing is the improvement one, to where she can get grants to help expand the daycare.
Okay.
And make certain improvements for the children. So that's the main thing. I think I mentioned it before. We have a problem in my neighborhood. Every now and then people want to race up and down the streets. So we teamed up and basically moving forward to put the speed bumps on the street, build another little recreational area for the children in the neighborhood. So I said some things are moving.
Okay, so she'll basically be able to expand without any out of pocket costs to her or from her company.
Basically, yes.
Okay. All Good stuff. Tutor Vision. The link was sent to you for you to join the panel if you're able. So I just want to put out there also for you as well, Carrie Bay.
And again, that's Miss Leanne from Carter's Little Sheep.
Good stuff.
Aboriginal, or you say American Indian Daycare Center.
So, yeah. So again, the whole reason for the community spotlight is for those of you that tune in that actually have people in your community, or even if it's yourself, share with everyone what's going on. Not only that, but also gives you the opportunity to put a spotlight on those individuals and encourage people to listen, and they can hear for their names and be able to share that information. Because at the end of the day, it's all about people helping their community. So if you have some people in your community that are doing good things, please, by all means, let us know, and we will give them the attention that they have earned. Grand Rising, Mark Walton. Hope everything is going well. All right. So, let me see. Can everyone hear us? Because I want to make sure the levels are right. So, if you are in the chat, please give us some ones if you can hear us, or give us some twos if we need to make some adjustments. Give us some ones in the chat if you can hear us, and give us some twos if we need to make some adjustments. All right, Grand Rising, Joshua James. Grand Rising, Arthur Gray. Appreciate y'all for that. So we are coming to a close with the 501c versus tax exempt. So we have about another 6 or 7 left. So the goal is to finish up with those today, so we can move on to some other information next tomorrow. So, Grand Rising, Mr. TJ. Grand Rising, Brittany Davis. So yesterday, the tax exempt status that we stopped on was the 527. And the 527 is your political organizations. And if you want to find out more about that and find out what the detail was, you can actually go to consciousassembly.com and catch that. And basically the 527 were your political organizations. It says that operate primarily to raise or spend money to influence the selection, nomination, election, or appointment of any individual to any federal, state, or local public office, such as political parties, political action committees, and super PACs. So that was the nonprofit tax exempt organization that we left off with yesterday. So today we're going to be covering the 528. So let me go ahead and put this link in the chat. So that you will be able to take a look at it at your leisure. And if there's something that we need to cover, or we need to address, you'll be able to assist. Or if there's some information that you can provide based off of personal experience and things of that nature, please provide it. Or if there's some things that are incorrect that need to be corrected, and you have the proof, please do that as well. And with that being said, let's look at what the 528 tax exempt status is for. So your 528s are for your homeowner associations, condominium management associations, residential real estate management associations, your timeshare associations. And these organizations may elect to be exempt from income tax on their exempt function income under Section 528. Alternatively, Some homeowner associations that provide only a social and recreational activities may qualify under the 501c7. So for those of us who own property, or who even work for homeowners associations or condominium management services or real estate management associations or even timeshares, you're participating in a nonprofit entity either as a homeowner, because you are basically part of that. You could basically be a part of that governing board, or you may be working with or for one of these organizations in some capacity, be it the condominium management, residential real estate management, or timeshare associations. So if you are working in one of these capacities or working with them in one of these capacities, a good question to ask them is if they are a 501, if they are a 528. And if they're not, you might be able to talk to them about the benefits of being a 528. If you're an employee, it might get you a raise. If you are partnering with them, it may get you more contacts. If you're a homeowner, it may be more lenient. Just saying, something to think about. So those are your 528s. Is there anything that you want to add to that about the 528s?
No, not on the 528. I'm just still like, woo.
What about you, though, Salah?
Nope.
Doodle Vision says Silver Leaf Timeshare. If you have purchased one, you are a stockholder. Mr. TJ says, uh-oh.
Yep, I'm with Westgate.
Ah. Yeah, I had no idea that timeshares were nonprofit organizations. The way those as aggressive as those salespeople are, you'd have thought it was strictly for profit, but it goes to show you what I know.
Yep. Shows you what I know.
Now, so too is a tidbit. For those who are looking to move into a neighborhood or purchase a home or rent, and you're renting a home, one of the best things to do is to go to a homeowners association meeting to determine if you even want to be in that that home or on that property, because homeowner associations they pretty much have autonomy when it comes to how they regulate the living quarters, if you will, for lack of better terms. A lot of people prefer to purchase a property, and particularly a residence, that do not have homeowners association, because it gives the homeowner a little bit more leeway. If you purchase a property where there's a homeowners association, they have constitutions and bylaws that upon signing your mortgage, you're also signing into your homeowners association, and there are things that you have to adhere to, such as how high your grass has to be, and if you're going to put any fixed structure in your backyard, you have to get their approval. If you change your windows, you have to get their approval. If not, they can start assessing taxes and fines on you, and even place liens on your property. So
Yeah, even know how many guests that you can have at your house and at what time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget about the mail.
You said, don't forget about what?
The mailbox. I just read something in a newsletter.
Oh yeah, your mailbox got to be the same design, got to be in the same condition.
Yeah.
You only have available colors that you can paint your property.
Exactly.
So if it ain't one of them, you just ain't painting it.
And that's a great example of how an association who pretty much runs your residence has autonomy, and there is nothing that the government can do about it because you signed a contract.
Mm-hmm.
So for those individuals who are under the impression that these constitutions and bylaws don't work, I promise you that you are in a system where when you own a property, you don't even control what goes on in your own neighborhood. The homeowner association does. So that's another form of how these corporate structures that you can set up yourself or someone has set up, that if their bylaws, their constitutions are tight, the government minds its business because they're minding theirs. So it's just another example of how an organization pretty much is government free of the government, meaning that the government will never get involved if you have a dispute with your homeowners association unless they are violating the Constitution and the bylaws, and or if you are violating the Constitution and bylaws. As long as everything works within that framework, and because you signed that contract and they signed that contract, both of you are beholden to that. So that's another example of how corporate entities, whether they're quote unquote government corporate entities or corporate entities that are owned by people or organizations, have autonomy and sovereignty. Dudavision says HOAs are tools of the devil. He says Satan resides in HOAs. He says HOAs can foreclose on your home if you don't pay your annual dues. That's true. Some dues are paid monthly. Copper Color Queen says, see, that's why I like to have some land. Dudavision says they can foreclose on your home. Mr. TJ says mortgage companies just bought. He said mortgage company just bought my contract. Yeah, your mortgage gets sold a lot because there is an organization that allows the mortgage companies to do that. So what that's doing is they are hedging their bets on your mortgage, so it's reducing their liability. So it's a co-op, like we was talking about earlier. So again, another example of how corporate structures, when done properly, can keep the government out your business. You don't have to declare independence from the United States government to have autonomy of your personal affairs. So, and if there's somebody that has proof to debunk that, or there's a court case that you want to pull out to prove otherwise, please be more than willing to do so.
Where that though?
Just said HOAs, the South shall rise again. They call HOAs equal to colonize.
Yeah, I can go. Yeah, I can go for that.
Now here's something that's interesting, because Copper Color Queen made a great statement. She says, "See, that's why I like to have some land." So check this out. So how about we flip this and look at it from a different perspective? I know that's why Dudavision kept talking about it. Is it possible for you to own land and have your own homeowners association?
Yes, it is. That's how we need to start thinking as a people.
So why can't you buy property and create your own homeowners association, which will then allow for that property to be serviced and receive certain benefits of a nonprofit entity? Well, something to think about.
I mean, that's how, when we go through all these mechanisms, that's what I see. I see ways for our people to apply these mechanisms to what, like I'm gonna keep saying, the situations and conditions of our past and some of our presents don't have to be. We have to stop thinking like individuals and start applying this together.
That's the way I look at it. Hold on for a quick second.
No problemo. And that's just up to this point. So imagine every nonprofit that we covered. Imagine if we set these structures up for ourselves. Basically, everything that you need is there, and you're doing it for yourself.
Facts.
Becoming self-sufficient. We told you our mission here is to help the American Indian and the tribes become self-sufficient. And we're giving you the mechanisms to self-sufficiency. It's just up to you to apply it.
Application.
That's it. I mean, we know because we used to say applications, And that's what autonomous assembly is built off of. These same applications. So we're not here just telling you. We're telling you, providing the information from an entity that was created from the same information. Now, ain't that something?
Hove did that. So hopefully you don't have to go through that.
You know?
And Copper Color Queen says, "Oh, really?" Yeah, because at the end of the day, you can look at it this way: we can either continue to view ourselves as victims, and I'm not saying that we haven't been done wrong as a collective or as a group. That's not what I'm saying. Please don't misunderstand me. But at some particular point, we have to stop being a victim and start being a victor, and look at the things that we can do and stop focusing on the things that we can't do. Because focusing on the things that you can't do is only going to get you more of the things that you cannot do. So, how about look at what's been made available to us, the information that's provided, so we can start taking advantage. Like you heard, there's a daycare provider who was operating specifically and exclusively as a for-profit entity, and now they're putting things in place today to start being a non-profit and be able to take advantage of some of those things. Now, they could have looked at it from a negative standpoint where I didn't know this and this, that, and the third, but they're being proactive. They're making moves. So let's look at it from the things that we can do versus what has been holding us back. Because we can't change what happened in the past, but we can change what we do in the present and moving on in the future.
Facts. Unspoken, no better.
Copper Color Queen says, "I'm working with my mom to have my name added to the homestead since I'm helping to pay taxes on it. Our own HOA. Why not? There's nothing preventing you from having your own homeowners association or any other association for that matter. As long as you fall within the guidelines like everything else, you have it."
Basically, we can have our own hospitals, our own infrastructures, utilities, schools, you name it. We just got to do it the right way. And what's wrong with doing it the right way when you realize there's mechanisms to provide the finances if you do it right?
That's my perspective.
The right way when it's your ancestors' way.
Say that again. I don't think they heard.
I said, what's wrong with doing it the right way when it was your ancestors' way?
That's how you honor your ancestors. From my perspective, my humble personal opinion. Doodle Vision says, "My HOA sent me a letter about 15 years ago about the tree that died before construction was completed. They treated to fine me. He said they threatened to fine me for $250. So I sent to Walmart, and he said I went to Walmart and bought a Charlie Brown Christmas tree." Original Tiller says, I just purchased two vacant lots. Now I'm digging on 501c5.
There you go.
Yeah, man.
And that's all we saying. Relatives, take this information and you can start applying it now. It does not take a secret handshake. Firstborn, giving away the secret code. You can start applying this now. That's why we do this.
Exactly.
Public knowledge.
Nothing secret or sacred. Just stuff that we share.
No gatekeeper.
What you say?
Said public knowledge, no gatekeeper.
Yeah, no sellout. You coming in kind of low, this rising.
My bad. Mic check. Mic check. 2212.
That's a lot better.
Okay. I'll just speak up. I'll speak louder, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. So that was the 528, dealing with the homeowners associations. He said no secret handshakes and booty bumps needed. No, none of that.
He's so surprised at that. He's generally surprised. There's no handshake or booty bumps needed. No. I don't recall any of that.
No, me neither.
No. Man.
Oh, you know what else too? We never told them what's the cost of wanting to set up your own 501c.
Oh man, yeah, that's very important.
What's the cost of setting it up? It's just the cost of put in the cost of the entity setup, which means whatever your state charges you for setting it up, your entity as a LLC, S corp, C corp, trust, or what have you. And I know in the state of Virginia, it can range anywhere from $75 all the way up to $200, depending on how you set it up. And then your tax exempt status. To file for your tax exempt status, using what is that? 1023 form 1023. Other than what's indicated on the 501c site or the IRS.gov, it's going to cost you no more than $275 to file that status. So you could do all this for less than $500. Now, if you go to an attorney or some organization where you have to pay them to do it, then it could get as high as $5,000 to $10,000. So, but you could do it yourself for under $600. So,
we can sell it out of court right now for $20.
I guess some don't be listening when we be like, Autonomous Assembly is a nonprofit organization. We just ain't here talking about it.
Yeah. We try to do what we say. We try to provide proof. We try to provide information. We're not down with the hashtag no proof needed movement. We're not with that.
They still pulling rabbits out of hats.
That's more like a YouTube movement.
Oh, is it? Okay.
So I don't have to prove it. Yeah, that's like a YouTube thing.
The due diligence says, and they'll give you time to pay for it. That's true.
Yes, they will.
They said you don't have to pay it all up front. So moving on to the next tax exempt status, the 529s. Now, many of you who have children and you plan on enrolling them in an in-state college, you probably have heard of these 529 programs before. They are your qualified tuition programs, or what they call QTPs. They are established and maintained by a state or an agency or instrumentality of a state that allows a contributor to either prepay a beneficiary's qualified higher education expense at an eligible education institution, or let me go ahead and open this up. Or to contribute to an account for paying those expenses. Eligible educational institutions can also establish and maintain QTPs, but only to allow prepaying beneficiaries qualified higher education expenses. After December 31st, 2017, qualified higher education expenses include tuition expenses in connection with the designated beneficiary's enrollment or attendance at an elementary or secondary public, private, or religious school, i.e. kindergarten through grade 12, up to total amount of $10,000 per year from all the designated beneficiaries QTPs. It reads, let me go ahead and put this in the chat. Also reads, an eligible educational institution is generally any college, university, vocational school, or other post-secondary educational institution eligible to participate in a student aid program administered by the Department of Education. Contributions to a QTP on behalf of any beneficiary, can't be more than the amount necessary to provide for the qualified higher education expenses of the beneficiary. Contact the program's trustee or administrator to determine the program's contribution limit. Contributions made to a QTP are not deductible. The beneficiaries establishing a QTP are earnings accumulated tax-free while in the account. The beneficiary does not generally have to include the earnings from a QTP as income. Distributions aren't taxable when used to pay for qualified higher education expenses, including tuition at an elementary or secondary school, private or religious school. However, if the amount of the distribution is greater than the beneficiary qualified higher education expense, including tuition at the elementary school, public, private, or religious school, a portion of the earning is taxable. So basically, what that means is, if they're only allowing you $10,000 per year to be taxed, to be non-taxable, and if you're paying 12, then you have to pay taxes on the remaining 2,000. That's basically what that means. Uh, so, so your 529 programs are nonprofit organizations. Now, putting things in perspective, Grand Rising Golden Moon, putting things in perspective. Is it possible, based off of what we know about these nonprofit entities, is it possible to turn a homeschool situation into a nonprofit educational system, and then have that educational system benefit from a 529 program? Yes or no?
That's an amazing question.
The answer should be simple. The answer is yes. Because according to 501c3s, you can have a nonprofit entity for what? Education, right? And as long as you meet those stipulations for education, you can then turn around and create or become part of a qualified tuition program. So, something to think about. Again, it's just helping you change the way you think and the way we look at things from a standpoint of they're taking advantage of us too. These are things that we can take advantage of to benefit our people. And Doodle Vision says, see, scammers, Scammer University can be a reality for you. Golden Moon says, what's good? Well, Golden Moon, we're finishing up the 501c versus tax exempt status today. And we're talking about the 529, which is the qualified tuition programs. So that is a nonprofit, i.e. tax exempt institution as well. So I put the link in the chat so you'll be able to take a look at it. Right now, if you're in front of a computer or you have more than one device, that doesn't take you off of YouTube when you look at it. Grand Rising Free, LJ Free. Hope all is
Grand
well.
Ride. Peace. You're late. Now let me stop.
Bone said I did. Alright. So the next item where we're going to talk about from a tax exempt status is your non-exempt charitable trusts that have exclusively charitable interests. And the nomenclature for that is 4947A1. And those are your non-exempt charitable trusts that have exclusive charitable interests. That is literally the title of this. And of course, there is no link, so I will go look it up so we will be able to discuss it further.
Doodle silly this morning.
Wow.
They going to SAMU, mascot the buck dances.
Get that degree from C.A.B. You're sitting on the couch all day.
So, your non-exempt charitable trust, and this is basically from the IRS website, www.irs.gov, and I'm actually will put this in the chat so you can take a look at it.
Listen, do it right. Them people will be your best friends. Trust.
Your non-exempt charitable trust, according to the IRS, page, it says the Internal Revenue Code subjects charitable trusts that are non-exempt from tax to some of the same requirements and restrictions that apply to private foundations. If the trusts have an unexpired interest devoted to charitable purposes for which a charitable deduction was allowed, the aim is to prevent a trust of this nature from being used to avoid the requirements and restrictions to apply to private foundations. In this connection, a charitable purpose includes a religious, educational, charitable, scientific, or literary purpose, a purpose to foster national or international sports competition, but only if there is no provision of athletic facilities or equipment, a purpose to prevent cruelty to children or animals, or a gift to for the use of a state, a possession of the United States, or any political subdivision of the same, the United States or the District of Columbia, when the gift is to be used exclusively for public purposes. So non-exempt charitable trusts can be given the same benefits as a private foundation.
Listen to what it said. It can be given for charity.
So a non-exempt charitable trust can be treated as exempt like a foundation under certain circumstances.
So if I have a trust, and from this trust, let's say if I took care of less fortunate kids with some of this stuff from this trust, wouldn't that qualify it?
It would.
But hold on, I thought trust wasn't able to be touched by the IRS, people telling you. Aha!
Some of the biggest, most monumental legislation came from antitrust laws. So I don't know where that information would come from.
Antitrust.
Yeah, antitrust laws. Look up Standard Oil.
That's like the trust bill.
Look up the steel magnets back in the early 1900s. There were a lot of antitrust laws that shaped this quote-unquote nation or this corporation or whatever you want to call it. That's false information. Say again.
Yeah. If there's the villain of trust, antitrust, what's wrong with me putting land or things in a trust? I don't understand.
There's nothing wrong with putting land in a trust if it's done correctly, and it also depends on what your intent is. And your constitution, your bylaws of your trust will stipulate your intention. And if you don't have any constitution and bylaws, and you're leaving it up to the interpretation of the government to determine what that interpretation is, and then you might have the alphabet boys come knocking on your door.
Yeah, there's no way you buying land, putting it in the trust, and think because you put it in the trust that you're not making payments or you're not paying taxes on it anymore. That don't work that way. Turn that movie off, please, please, please do.
You always want to consult an estate attorney, because estate attorneys are the ones that deal with real property. So, Grand Rising Antonio Batiste. Through the Vision says, what about those people that say, trust me, I'm a chief? I say, let me see your constitution and your bylaws and see how you were voted in. But that's just me.
Yep, I can't see that. Nobody believes you.
You ain't got to believe it anyway, because most of the time you're not mentioning the tribe that you have when you can't even prove you're a chief.
Yeah, you don't mention the tribe don't mention you. Yeah.
Where your people at?
Where they at, though?
Original Tiller says, does every state have a land trust? Not every state have land trusts, but not every state calls them land trusts. Depending on the state, will title it differently. So again, you have those land trusts that are registered with the state. So
yeah, there's no such thing as universal law. So we need to get this out the window now. Every state, every district, laws are different. Procedures change. There's no one magic thing you're gonna learn that where you can go to every county, every city on this great land of ours, and it's gonna work. Stop that, please.
Because if that was really the case, then let's use some. I don't even want to say common sense because that's not a fair term. Let's use some logic here. if there were one universal law that governed every state, then how is it that states are able to govern themselves? Why is it that it is federally illegal to possess, sell, or smoke marijuana, but you can go to dispensaries in certain states and it's legal?
Huh?
Because if the Constitution is the law of the land and it overrides everything else, then no state should be able to have jurisdiction over its own affairs. If that's the case,
You got to remember, state law comes first. You're living in a state, and within that state, you're staying in a district. You're subject to those laws first.
and as we've listened to Doodle Vision talk about how things are run in Texas, Texas is a state that has a lot more autonomy and freedom than most states. So if the Constitution is a law of the land, wouldn't the United States government make the state of Texas adhere to everything in the Constitution? Everything. Why does Texas have different laws and different jurisdictions than other states? Why are they not? What makes them special than other states? What makes Florida special from other states? What makes Pennsylvania special from other states? I mean, this is something to take into consideration. There are no laws that where the Constitution supersedes everything. The states have the opportunity to garner themselves. They run themselves, and then those states give that same autonomy to those districts and the counties, and then the counties do the same thing for businesses. So, I mean, that's if I'm wrong, let me know and prove it. I could be. I'm not saying I'm not. I'm saying that's how I know things.
Yeah, that's how I seen it and know it to work, but I could be wrong. Could have had something in my eye that day.
Golden Moon, aka Katie, says we are a republic, Lone Star State. Right. So if people that are saying that there are laws that supersede government, the state government, and they must adhere, then why are certain states allowed to limit your ability to carry conceal? Because I live in Northern Virginia. We can open carry, we can conceal carry. There are even packages, if you will, where you can carry conceal in 33 states. But I can't do that. I can't go 45 miles up the road in DC with a concealment permit. I get arrested. Or if I go over to Maryland and my weapon is not separated from my magazine, like my magazine needs to, depend on what county, my magazine needs to be put in the glove box and my weapon needs to be put in the trunk, depending on the county. So if I'm not adhering to the state law, it doesn't matter what the federal law says, I'm under the jurisdiction of that state. That state overrides. And
Yep.
I can go to court and still lose because they'll be like, well, what was the state law?
Yep.
So just some things to think about. And when people are perpetuating this information, you might want to ask for proof. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with asking for proof. That's just me. Go ahead. You gonna say something, Bones?
Yeah, I said I asked a question.
Yeah.
Stop taking things at face value and running with it. And mainly the things that's doing the most damage to you. And I understand, I said this before, a lot of us have said it. I understand that a lot of our people are hurting, that we're trying to get out of these situations, and some of them want the financial pain to stop. But we cannot allow that to allow us to jump on something that pushes us further back, or pushes, you know what I'm saying, or make us as a whole, make this fight harder for everyone. We made it this far. So what's the sense in taking the time to do our due diligence and make sure that the rest of the way that we walk through the door is the proper way? All I's are dotted, all T's are crossed. The information is here. We can do this.
Golden Moon Ramon says reciprocity is what it's called. We teach or train people in our LTC classes. Would you say proof is a problem? Documentary coming soon. I came with you. So moving on to the next tax exempt status, or nonprofit, if you will. The 4947A2. Now the one that was read before that, as you could probably guess, was the 4947A1. So what's different between a non-exempt charitable trust that exclusively is for charitable interests versus a 4947A2, which is called a split interest trust?
Uh-oh.
A split interest trust is split into two interests. So, present interest is with the beneficiary, and the remainder is given to the charity. A split interest can be used to avoid or reduce capital gains taxes, increase income, and to avoid or reduce federal estate tax. Split interest trust is also known as a charitable remainder trust.
If you do your research, you're going to find a lot of these Fortune 500s and wealthy people attached to these split trusts. Remember that capital gains tax. Remember capital gains tax. That's how they get around it.
Golden Moon, aka Katie, says know your rules in each state. Not only just know your rules in each state, know your rules in each county, because each county is different. Because remember, they're all the entities are incorporated. So split interest trust, and this is from definitions.legal.com. And I'm gonna put this in the chat. It says a split interest trust is an irrevocable trust in which the income is first dispersed to beneficiaries of the trust for a specified period of time, and then the remainder of the trust is donated to a designated charity. The beneficiaries receive the income and the charity receives the principal after a specific period of time. The trust is split into two interests. Present interest is with the beneficiary, and the remainder is given to the charity. A split interest can be used to avoid or reduce capital gains taxes, increase income, and avoid and reduce federal estate taxes. Doodle Vision says they use split interest trust to open an account for the kids, and the rest goes to their alma mater. Facts. So, I'm sure many of you have heard the term avoid used twice on this legal page. Does anybody know the difference between tax avoidance and tax evasion? Anybody know?
One you can go home, the other one you going to Sing Sing?
Exactly. Tax avoidance is legal. Tax evasion is illegal. So,
yes, sir.
So you can legally avoid or reduce your taxes. It is illegal to evade. So
100% correct. People do it all the time, but just they annually income to adjust their taxes, their tax liability.
Yeah, I mean, it was in that last explanation saying avoid or reduce. Yeah. Avoid or reduce. Was it avoid? Was that the term?
Say again.
Yeah, it was avoid. Yeah.
It was avoid or yeah, okay. I'm just saying. It was in that explanation. Evasion, I mean, evasive. Come on, you can pretty much tell the difference in those two terms and which one is.
It sound like you're trying to get away with something. Evade.
Escape from Pompeii.
I mean, common sense, it would be the opposite of invade. If invade mean you coming in, evade mean you trying to get away, get at.
Again, it's all about indoctrination. We've been indoctrinated so much that we don't ask questions. We just accept information. So which goes to what we've all spoken on. You can go from one form of indoctrination into another form of indoctrination. You carry that same mindset of not asking questions, and that's what some of us have been victims of. Even myself, I've been in, you know, for lack of better term, conscious communities where I just took everything at face value because the individual was charismatic and they had more knowledge, or they spoke a different language, or they spoke multiple languages, and I never questioned anything. So indoctrination is not just privy, or it's just not specific to the colonizers.
No, it is not. Another misconception.
Doodle Vision says avoid equals ignoring you because you aren't relevant to me. Evade equals means dodge me because you owe me money.
Where that though? Where that though?
I like that. So I'm gonna read that again. Avoid equals ignoring you because you aren't relevant to me, and evade equals dodge me because you owe me money. Indigenous Intelligence says rich people do it where they gotta take required minimum distributions out of their IRAs. They donate to a church or some entity, right? Copper Color Queen says, thank you for bringing this information out. It's much needed. That's what we're here for. To provide this information to you so you can go out and have a positive effect or change on your community, and if you wish, your tribe.
Yes, sir.
Couldn't have said it no better.
So that was your 4947A2s, also known as your split interest trust.
Split it.
So we have the 170C1, which are known as your government entities in the United States. And of course, there is no link, so we got to put our hard hats on. What are these government entities in the United States?
All right, relatives, y'all know what time it is. Double seat belts, hard hats, steel toe boots. Time we moving. Puncture the new hole in it. Let's go.
I'm trying to pull out the definition of government entity. It's always one that gives us problems.
Yeah, I think we exposed the big one. Every show so far dealing with these 501Cs.
Mm-hmm.
There was a major one we pulled the lid back on, pulled the covers off. Like, hey, there you go. We found you.
See if I can.
And also, if you find the time, make sure to go back through the episodes. And if you hear any of the 501Cs that fit what you're doing now, it's nothing for you to start the process to switch it over. And TMH has said plenty of times, you need assistance, have questions, hit us up about it. That's what we're here for. Or even use the call-in number during the show if you have relevant questions dealing with the topics. Don't let the information pass you by, then sit back, being in that if, shoulda, woulda, coulda group. We ain't doing that.
Let me see if it allow me to define them based off of this. Hold on.
Oh, you know I know that, Free. I heard you was picking up that new land excavator that's rising.
He said land excavator. Is that new whip by Buick? No? Okay, never mind. Let me do it this way. 17.
Oh, y'all, we got a tricky one. It's trying to run. We boxing it in.
Who you telling? It's like trying to catch water.
It's trying to be evasive. It's trying to be evasive.
I mean, it's like doesn't want to give up anything. I'm putting in all type of different versions of this search.
I can imagine what type of corporations and companies and entities are hitting up under this one. You know, normally when it's like that, they trying to keep something away from you.
Let's see what we got. So one more thing. Okay, so what it basically gives me is it gives me a basic definition of a government entity. Any government or any state, department, or other political subdivision thereof, or any governmental body, agency, authority, or instrumentality in any jurisdiction exercising executive, legislative, regulatory, or administrative functions of or pertaining to government.
That entitles a whole lot.
That, man, if that's not a broad brush, I'll read it again. I'm pulling up the page too, where I got it from. And these are coming from law websites. So it says government entity means and includes whether having a district legal personality or not, any national or local government authority, board, commission, department, division, organ, instrumentality, court, or agency, and any association, organization, or institution of which any of the foregoing is a member, or to whose jurisdiction any of the foregoing is subject, or in whose activities any of the foregoing is a participant. Government entity also can mean any international, multinational, national, federal, private, provincial, state, municipal, local, or other government or public department, central bank, court, commission, board, bureau, agency, or instrumentality, domestic or foreign, any subdivision or authority, or any other foregoing, or any quasi-government or private body, in each case having jurisdiction on behalf of any nation, province, territory, state, or other geographic subdivision thereof, and exercising any regulatory, judicial, legislation, expropriation, or taxing authority. And two divisions says state, country, and local governments and subdivisions fall under the code. It also includes Indian tribes, community development corporations, and economic development corporations. So if you think about it, government entities can basically be a catch-all for anything that you did not follow up under with the other ones. If I had to make an educated guess.
Slippery slope.
So that one was wow. And then you have your 892A, which are your foreign governments. So wait a minute.
Foreign governments and embassies and non-profit? Is that what we're saying? Well, if this government is nonprofit, yes, foreign government should be nonprofits considered.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because when I type in foreign government, it gives me, again, a very vague and general definition of foreign government. It says, and then it doesn't even define foreign government, it defines foreign. Foreign official or foreign public official refers to a person who acts in an official capacity for a foreign government. The term is chiefly used in connection with international conventions and national laws against corruption and international trade. And there's a site under guideslibrary.ucsc.edu talks about foreign governments and laws. So let's look at it and see what the IRS has to say about foreign governments. Foreign governments and certain other foreign organizations. Due division says foreign governments equals embassies. That's what I thought. But so this is from the IRS.gov. Foreign governments. U.S. investments income earned by foreign government is not included in the gross income of foreign government and is not subject to U.S. withholding tax. U.S. investment income means income from the investment in the United States in stocks, bonds, and other domestic securities. Financial instruments held in the execution of a governmental, financial, or monetary policy, and interest on money deposited by a foreign government in banks in the United States. Foreign government must provide a Form W-8EXP, Certificate of Foreign Government, or other foreign organizations for United States tax withholding. Or in the case of a payment made outside the United States to an offshore account, documentary evidence to obtain this exemption. Investment income that is paid to a foreign government is subject to reporting on Form 1042-S. Foreign persons or U.S. source income subject to withholding. Income, including investment income received by a foreign government from the conduct of a commercial activity or from source other than those stated above, is subject to non-residence alien NRA withholding. In addition, income received from a controlled commercial entity, including gain from the disposition of any interest in a controlled commercial entity, and income received by a controlled commercial entity, is subject to NRA withholding. If the foreign government is a partner in the partnership carrying on a trade of business in the United States, effectively connected income, ECI, allocatable to the foreign government may be considered derived from a commercial activity. For more information regarding foreign governments receiving income from the conduct of commercial activity and income as a partner in partnerships carrying on trade or business in the U.S., refer to Proposed Treasury Regulations, REG 146-537-06. So even foreign governments have to pay taxes. Now there are foreign tax-exempt organizations, and those would be the ones that would be they're talking about here. And international organizations are exempt from U.S. tax on all U.S. sources income. This income is not subject to NRA withholding. International organizations are not required to provide Form W-8 or documented evidence to receive the exemption if the name of the payee is one of the designated as international organization for it by executive order. Foreign tax-exempt organizations, that is, tax-exempt organizations not subject to withholding tax on amounts that are income related to business taxable income. However, if a foreign organization is a foreign private foundation, it is subject to 4% withholding tax on all U.S. source investment income. So your embassies are considered as tax-exempt organizations. I'm gonna see if I can give some more examples.
It's like how Doodle Vision said. That's why you have U.S. companies for overseas headquarters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a very broad. It's a very broad statement because all it basically says is a foreign organization that is a tax-exempt organization is not subject to withholding tax on amounts that are income unrelated to business taxable income. However, if a foreign organization is a foreign private foundation, it is subject to a 4% withholding tax on all U.S. source invested income. So even your embassies are have to apply for a tax exempt status. So here's a question I have. If you're separating, and I'm not saying this to be trite or trying to be funny, it's a question because I don't know the answer. So if you're separating from the United States government, right, under the auspice of that you were here first, how are you deemed, or how are you being viewed by this governing body known as the United States of America? Are you being viewed as a foreign government? Are you being viewed as do the visions? Where's your embassy? Who is your ambassador? If you're looking to separate or get outside the United States tentacles, if you will, what mechanism are you putting in place? Because even foreign countries that have entities have to register with Washington, D.C. at least. There's some paper trail, some sort of documentation, some sort of proof, if you will, that there is a government-to-government relationship. Exactly. That's interesting that China receiving suggests creating its own currency based on the gold standard. Well, Antonio, here's an interesting thing about China, which you may know, is that for those of us who understand business, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that do, there are more McDonald's in China than there are in the United States. How is that possible, and how is that allowable if we're supposed to be sworn enemies of one another? I'll wait for that answer.
Yeah, stop going for the Hollywood script now. Please stop going for it. We're enemies with so-called countries, but there's, like you said, there's more American companies in the country than it is here.
And you could do your research on McDonald's. They are a real estate holding company.
Said this yesterday. They're not a restaurant. A real estate holding company disguised as a restaurant.
Yeah, you may own the building, but they own the land that the building sits on. So they own you.
Yeah, they own the land and the name. When you get a franchise from one of these places, you're paying them for the land and using their name. Don't take our word for it. Just look it up. Call them telling you interested in starting a franchise. See what they tell you. Matter of fact, try to sell something at McDonald's that they don't want you to carry under their name and watch what happens.
Antonio Batiste says that's a complete lie. China runs everything, including our debt. Yeah, you might want to check that too, Antonio, because even though that's how it appears on his face,
that's not what it is.
Who's China's number one consumer?
We have a relationship with China. China is America's manufacturing wing, and us here are the consumers of it. Do not believe that there's a strained relationship there. America and China are dependent on each other right now. We ain't going to war with each other. That's distraction and talk.
So, Doodle Vision says China is buying land in America and creating municipal utility districts, MUDs. And Antonio says that's what I'm saying. He said, but I gotta act like I'm working.
Yeah, see, they'll tell you America has this big debt to China, but then you have to ask yourself, if China is manufacturing everything that we're consuming, where does the debt come in at? If there's American companies over there in China responsible for the manufacturing, where is the debt coming from? Just don't go by what they say. Start looking at these numbers and start looking at these companies. Last I checked, McDonald's ain't shutting down no time soon.
Because if they were actually liquidating and we owed them that kind of money, wouldn't one of the first places they would cash in on is on their own land and take
Yeah,
ownership of the McDonald's, the holding companies in McDonald's? I mean, that's what I do. That's what I would do if you owed me money. I would liquidate.
and that's just one of the American companies over there is McDonald's. So look at all the other ones over there. So you really think if they was owing America so much money that these companies would be allowed to run over there? Let's also not forget who did the colonization of China, but that's a story for another day.
Oh yeah.
Who owns Hong Kong? It ain't China. We'll touch that another day though.
Follow the money. sometimes it's applicable to ignore the news.
Yes, it is.
News is nothing more than a direction. Get you looking one way while they do something in another way. Misdirection. The last.
Right on, man.
Go ahead, Bones. You're coming in choppy. You about to say something, Bones? Alright. The last and final tax-exempt entity as of today is the 892B. Now, the one we just got finished with were your foreign governments, which was your 892A. The 892B is public international organizations or international organizations proprietary commission in which the government of the United States participates. Public international organizations or international organization proprietary commissions in which the government of the United States participates. And I have no idea what that is. I guess I'll have to call the IRS to find out because that is a mouthful. Antonio crazy. He says, man, what I missed. Like I'm here to work. Ain't nobody got time for that. So we're looking at the 892B, which is a final tax-exempt entity on the Wikipedia page. And as legislation continues to get passed and politicians are influenced and elections are influenced, you can best believe there will be more nonprofits, tax-exempt entities set up. Doodle Vision says they're your UN like your United Nations. That would make sense.
Yeah, UN and international money. Yeah, the IMF. Yeah. Uh-oh.
So let's do Wikipedia on the UN. Let's see what they say.
It's gonna get dangerous. Falling information. Watch your head.
Wow. The things you learn when you read. Did y'all get what do you think the United Nations is headquartered? Just take a guess.
New York City.
You cheating.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, the United Nations is headquartered in New York City. It says the United Nations is an intergovernmental organization tasked with maintaining international peace and security, developing friendly relationships among nations, achieving international cooperation, and being a center for harmonizing the actions of nations. It was established after World War II with the aim of preventing future wars and succeeding the effective League of Nations. Its headquarters, which are subject to extraterritoriality, are in Manhattan, New York City, and has other main offices in Geneva, Nairobi, Vienna, and The Hague. The organization is financed by assessed and voluntary contributions from its member states. Its objectives include maintaining international peace and security, protecting human rights, delivering humanitarian aid, promoting sustainable development, and upholding international law. The UN is the largest, most familiar, most internationally represented, and most powerful intergovernmental organization in the world. And its founding, the UN had 51 member states. There are now 193. And the United States government has military bases on how many of the 193? But anyway, that's another day. So on 25 April.
130.
Okay.
To answer that question, they have 130 out of the 193 countries. They have a base in 130 of them. Play with it if you want to.
So the United States has 160 bases on 193 of these territories, and none of these territories have a base on the United States soil. Okay, just checking. So on 25 April 1945, 50 governments met in San Francisco for a conference and started drafting the UN Charter, which was adopted on 25 June 1945 at San Francisco Opera House and signed on 26 June 1945 in the Herbst Theater Auditorium in the Veterans War Memorial Building. The charter took effect on 24 October 1945 when the UN began operations. The organization's missions to preserve world peace was complicated in its early decades during the Cold War between the United States and Soviet Union and their respective allies. Its missions have consisted primarily of unarmed military observance and lightly armed troops, with primarily monitoring, reporting, and confidence building roles. The organization's membership grew significantly following widespread decolonization, which started in the 1960s. Since then, 80 former colonies had gained independence, including 11 trust territories, which were monitored by the Trustee Council. By the 1970s, this budget for economic and social development programmers outstripped its spending on peacekeeping. After the end of the Cold War, the UN shifted and expanded its field operations and undertaking a wide variety of complex tasks. Doodle Vision said the NFL is structured after the League of Nations, precursor to the UN. So if you want to make sure your government is tight, just look at the structure of the League of Nations.
Think about it. The NFL is what? Made up of a league, of different teams with different representation. Yeah, you can see how it's the precursor. Well, the Constitution and the paperwork, how it's the precursor to it. Yeah.
You want to make sure your entities are right? I always say, look at the NFL and how they structured. It's public information. It's not secret. It's public. Anybody can download it. The first 292 pages sets up how they structure everything.
Yes, sir.
And they're basically run and if you think about it, they're basically run by a republic dictatorship.
Yep.
I'll let you marinate on that. So the 892B was the last and final tax-exempt entity that's covered in Wikipedia. We hope that this information has been beneficial to you. Our goal is to hope and help you with taking advantage of some of these nonprofits and potentially working in conjunction with the USDA grants and with the HUD 3 and HUD 9 grants to help your community, and if you choose your tribe. I knew a lot about nonprofits, but I learned more after exposing this information to everybody on the chat. So thank you for your time and thank you for listening. Anything that you want to add before we go into our set the record straight segment, Bones, or no sell?
Uh, Basically, like I said, do not let this information go in vain. It's recorded, so you can always go back to pick up pieces that you can't recall off the top of your head. You can always pass the episodes along to friends and family so they can get the information. We're not putting the information out here to say it's cool or to look good. It's for you to put it to use to help you in your everyday situations. Again, it's for you to put to use to fix your everyday situations.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody that participated in the chat with information like Doodle Vision and others who were very instrumental for applying or replying and giving us information that helped validate this information that was put out here. So we definitely appreciate you. So anything you want to add? No, sell out. So I'll take that silence as a no.
You're probably talking with a client.
Yeah. So, Doodle Vision says League of different land, nations, and countries. He said Redskins, Chiefs, Indians, Vikings, Raiders, Buccaneers, Caribou, Saints, French, Patriots, Colonizers, etc. You're absolutely right.
Nobody pays attention that to the NFL. It's made up of all the representation of the different countries. If you put time to actually notice it, Minnesota Vikings. But ain't that's where the Vikings went and set up a shop, set up their churches and stuff? Minnesota. Let me hush. Another day.
Doodle Vision says Vikings, Dutch, Germans, Arcadians. I mean, that's real.
Mm-hmm. These cities and teams don't have these mascots just for the sake of having a mascot.
There's normally a double meaning behind everything that's done.
Yes, sir. Because why do they still got the same mascots for over 50-some years?
So, all right. So let's go ahead and move to our set the record straight section of the program.
Wiki.
You're so funny. So this is the set the record straight of our program where we make corrections, whether it be with apologies or correcting misnomers, misunderstanding, misbeliefs, misquotes, whatever you wanna call it. Correcting accusations, answering to subtle shots taken at us or what have you. Just addressing things, calling out scams, scammers, skip, scalp, scallywags, stuff like that. So today's set the record straight is in relation to the UCC code, and I wanted to read an article pertaining to the UCC code. And let's see, where are we going? Where is it? Because again, someone had asked last Wednesday and made a comment. I mean, it was an honest question. It wasn't that they were being facetious, and we didn't take it as them being facetious. And they asked, why do we not use or talk about the UCC codes? And at the end of the day, I knew of the UCC codes, but I did not understand why that question was asked the way it was asked until I started doing some research. And I don't know everything, so I solicited the help of people in the chat and people on a panel and members of a conscious assembly, and was like, okay, so what's going on with these UCC codes? So we came up with a lot of information, and the purpose of the UCC code is basically an instrument to report or validate, for lack of better terms, debt. Normally when there's collateral. So if you purchase a vehicle and in order for you to get the title of that vehicle, that debt needs to be paid off. Or if someone claims that you owe them money, 9 times out of 10, there was a mechanism that was signed. And if there was some fraud in that, you can issue a complaint through a UCC code. Of course, I'm being very general. I'm generalizing, but just so you get a better understanding of what I'm talking about. It's a mechanism. The UCC codes are mechanisms of commerce when it comes to collateral or collateralized trade or commerce. But what I was not aware of is that there are individuals that are using these UCC codes in the form of, what's the best way to put it, terrorism, and to clog up the system.
It's considered paper terrorism. That's what the FBI and the government calls it.
So there are ways that these mechanisms are being used that can be beneficial. Again, so if someone says you owe them money and there was a contract signed, you can actually issue a complaint or issue some paperwork to validate that information, and there's a process and a procedure.
Yeah, because basically it's just being stored in the Federal Registry for all times. It's just a record of it.
Well, that's under Section 9. That's dealing with railroads, railways, and things that they certain parts of transportation. Because outside of that, it's only there for 2 to 5 years. So
that's it.
So when individuals are using that Section 9 portion of it to target a debt, whether it's a mortgage or something like that, to get from up under it, the Secretary of State already have countermeasures to handle this, and they've sent this information to all 50 states and territories. So if individuals are using these UCC codes to clog up the system or the network, not to try to scare you or make you upset, I just want you to be aware that the FBI is already on this. They have created a whole division because of this. It's called NAS, National Association of Secretary of State. So it's bad when the government invests money in a task force for the sole purpose of thwarting this. So the reason why I'm bringing this to your attention is not to make you feel bad or to thumb our nose up at you. It's to make you aware of potential pitfalls of using this mechanism, if that's what the mechanism is used for. So
Grand Rising, big call.
Yeah, Grand Rising, big call. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read this court case. And I just put the link in there. It says, Tyrone Eugene Jordan, described as an anti-government sovereign citizen, will spend 10 years in prison for filing $6.5 million in bogus liens against a federal judge and prosecutor. U.S. District Court Judge Gary H. Miller handed down the sentence on Friday in Houston, where Jordan, 45, was convicted by jury following a trial in July. He was found guilty of 3 counts of retaliation against a federal officer or employee. Trial evidence showed that on October 2014, Jordan filed a fraudulent lien, a Uniform Commercial Code financial statement with Texas Secretary of State, claiming that the federal prosecutor in the Southern District of Texas owed him $6.5 million. Last January, Jordan's knowingly filed 2 separate fraudulent obligation commercial lien affidavits with Harris County Clerk Office against the same prosecutor and federal judge. Filing bogus liens is a common practice of many sovereign citizens. Now, this is not my wording, this is theirs, who believe they are under no obligation to follow laws or licensing and taxing requirements and frequently flood courts with nonsensical legal documents. Some sovereigns also have been involved with violence directed at law enforcement and government officials for the past 4 years. The FBI has considered sovereign citizens to be a significant domestic terrorism threat. Now I'm going to stop right there because we all know how entities, i.e. the government of the United States, can word things. We all know that the majority of the people who are using these tactics are trying to get themselves out of a worse situation or a bad situation and have no malicious intent whatsoever. And we're not even implying, we're not even implying that's what they're trying to do. But that's not the way the government is looking at it. And the reason why the government is not looking at it that way is because it's costing them millions of dollars to deal with this issue. So what is the swiftest way for the United States to deal with something when somebody or an organization is being a pest? What do? Declare them what? A terrorist.
A terrorist. That's it. Put them up under the Patriot Act. Take care of all that.
So what does a layman or laywoman think of when they hear terrorist? A foreign entity, a foreign body. Somebody's doing something to harm the United States of America. So I wanted to put that out there, not to imply that people who are either looking up UCC codes, who are implying about UCC codes, are in any fact or manner terrorists, or that their intent is to be violent. I'm stating this and reading this so people can understand how the government is painting this picture. Because it doesn't matter what I say or what I think, because I'm not the FBI or the CIA that's going to be coming knocking on your door.
No, sir.
So it reads, some sovereigns also have been involved with violence directed at law enforcement and government officials for the past 4 years. The FBI has considered sovereign citizens to be significant domestic terroristic threat. In the Jordan case, investigators said he filed the bogus liens against the government employees because he was angry with them for their roles and convicted him in 2010 of conspiracy to commit money laundering and smuggling people. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison for that case and had just been released when he filed the fraudulent liens. Wow.
Stupid.
So he learned about this. He learned about this portion probably in jail, and now he's going to give him another 10 years.
Spread from. Didn't they say the majority? Well, we know the sovereign citizen movement was spread it from jail because they've been locked that dude up. And then also these UCC codes being spread from people that's locked up doing tremendous amount of time. So why ain't nobody asking them if it works so good? Why are you in here?
Why were you in there?
That would be my first thing. You know, the laws and these codes work so well, but you're being arrested and doing time. If that's the case, you shouldn't even never have a pair of handcuffs on.
And if you're operating outside of the jurisdiction of the law, then you should be able to record it, and there should be a way to make it to give anonymity to all parties involved and still provide proof. I'm just saying. So with that,
if you're outside of the jurisdiction, what are you even doing in the back of the police car, or even with a court date, or even with a fine if you're outside of their jurisdiction?
We're just using too much sense. Anyway, public officials should not have to suffer such harassment simply because they work to uphold the law, Durbin said in a statement released by the Justice Department. Jordan's lawyer, Richard Kunahaski, told the Houston Chronicle that his client never claimed to be a sovereign citizen or a member of any anti-government group. Now think about this. This gentleman never claimed to be a sovereign citizen or a member of any anti-government group. He's not a terrorist, Kunahaski told the newspaper, describing Jordan as a helpless sap written nonsensical letters. The defense attorney said Jordan has never threatened anybody and was a waste of judicial resources to bring federal charges against him. This is what his attorney is saying about it. Basically what he's saying, not to try to put words in his mouth, but to make it plain and simple, all this gentleman was doing was trying to get out of a situation, and he used these UCC codes to make his situation better. But
At least he thought he was.
right. He was sentenced as if he had committed some heinous crime. The defense attorney said, "The true moral is you don't mess with the federal judges and federal prosecutors. If you do, it's not going to be a pretty sight at the end of the day." So that's one instance of UCC codes going wrong. And so I'm on.
It's really understandable. Let's change shoes for a second. You at your business that you own or your place or whatever it is. Somebody come in here with a whole bunch of bogus paperwork. You know it's bogus, but because of your job description, you must sit here and sift through all this, costing you extra hours, extra labor for something that you know is fraudulent. How do you think that retaliation is going to be? How are you going to retaliate? To the highest extent of the law. So why would you expect it to be any different from anyone else?
Well, again, from the standpoint of the individual looking for relief and hearing a quote-unquote expert talk about this, if someone tells you that the government has no jurisdiction control over you and you're allowed to do it, and they must accept it by law, they must accept it. And if you're desperate, why wouldn't you listen? I mean, I'm just looking at it from that perspective, because at the end of the day, majority of the times when people get hemmed up, it's the people that are doing this to get out of a worse situation. The person that's perpetrating this and selling this information, they're not the ones that's going to get in trouble, because they'll make statements like, well, do this at your own risk, or we'll come help you, but there's going to be a fee associated, or something like that. So they'll give you this information, but they won't give you any proof that it works. And then people will make statements like, well, are you scared to have the FBI or CIA come knocking on your door? Look, I served 3.5 years in the military. I've been shot at, and I've shot at people. I've been in raids, and this is one thing I can tell you. I don't care how bold you think you are, but somebody come knocking down your door at 2 o'clock in the morning, scaring you and your family, that is not something anybody want to be a part of. So please don't be acting like you bold and you gonna do something. Because when the alphabet boys come for you, they come in with about 30 to 40, and they come in and tear your house up. So when you start speaking that bold rhetoric, take in consideration that when you get locked up, now your family is left with the aftermath of busted windows, a broken door, and you will not be financially compensated for that.
I'm like, yeah. If you bold, what you using paperwork for? I mean, really, if you're that bold.
So, anyway, that's just me.
Question everything. We got to get out of this thing thinking that there's some magic solution that's going to fix this overnight. We did not get into this situation overnight. We all done did this before in life, made some decisions that put you in a jam. So now you're looking for a quick way to get out of it. No malicious intent. You just want to get out that situation real quick. So somebody tell you, hey, invest a little in this right here and you can get this, this, and this. You end up jumping into that and it blows up in your face. We all know how it works. There's no easy way out of this. If they took 200 years to put us in this situation, then by means, we should be willing to fight and work for another 200 to get out of it. Stop wanting the instant gratification now. We're doing this for 7 generations plus.
So the link that I just put in there is called Sovereign Citizens Plaster Courts with Bogus Legal Filings and Some Turn to Violence. Again, it doesn't matter what your intent is. It's the way that it's being painted. And this article from the ABA Journal, www.abajournal.com/magazines/article/Sovereign Citizens Plastic Courts with Bogus Legal Filings and Some Turn Violent. It's the way that it's being painted so that there's public support. So your intent is irrelevant. There are certain buzzwords. There are certain things that they're going to be looking for that are flagged. They have everything covered in this article from pseudo-legal barrage to grassroots networking to pro se persistence, which basically means being your own attorney, to prodigious paperwork, to flawed filings. See, here's the thing that I think people need to understand. When this information is propagated and people go to court and they get a quote unquote win, I don't think the public understands that there are organizations, i.e., law schools and law association and judges' quarters and judges' associations, that sit back and look at these cases and then go back and prepare countermeasures. They have more resources and finances to deal with this than the person that's promoting this. Pamela Hall says, just read an article this AM that said that the native here are connected to Siberia. That must be in reference to American Indians. I mean, the Native Americans. It wouldn't surprise me. But back to the sovereign citizens and the UCC code thing. Please do not be under the impression that by making statements that you're going to halt an FBI from knocking down your door. Again, I would love to see someone who was going through this, and when the FBI or ATF came for them, they showed some paperwork and stopped them in their tracks and they end up going home. I would love to see that. And I'm not saying that it has not happened. I'm just saying that I haven't seen it. So you can call me scared, you can call me whatever you want to, but what you won't do is come see me. That much I know. So stop all the brave talk. So the Adder family locked up their Temecula, California home and went on vacation in 2012. While they were gone, Victor Ching moved in. Wait a minute.
Here we go again.
It says Ching, and I'm not making his name up. That's why I put it in the chat. It said Ching had owned the home before the Atters, but he lost it in foreclosure. Nonetheless, he filed a fraudulent deed with the county records office, transferred the utilities into his name, and even tried to evict actors after their return. During his prosecution for burglary, trespassing, and filing a false document, he insisted that he was not the person being prosecuted because the indictment spelled his name in all capital letters. Chairman Phillips of Chicago was upset that she was barred from courtroom during her brother's trial on drug charges, so she filed a false $100 billion lien against the property of 12 people involved in the case, including a U.S. attorney and chief judge then serving in the National District of Illinois. When she was prosecuted, she insisted on representing herself and called herself River Tali L. Bay, then filed numerous documents that the judge called clouded nonsense. In New Jersey, Ronald Tavino's company offered a debt elimination plan that purported to draw money from a secret bank account maintained by the U.S. Treasury in each citizen's name. Potentially customers here told that these fabricated accounts were set up to follow the government to borrow against each citizen's earnings, and that individuals who filed the right papers can gain access to the accounts. After his own employees turned him in, Octavino defended himself against the charges of frauds, money laundering, and tax evasion. He told the court that he didn't believe he was subject to U.S. taxes. What all these cases have in common is that they are part of the movement of sovereign citizens, according to law enforcement officials. Sovereigns, also called free men of the land or organic citizens, believe that an illegitimate, usurped federal government has taken over and that they don't have to pay taxes, pull over their cars for police, or obey any other law that they don't like. Again, look how they paint these people. These beliefs may sound silly, but sovereigns can be difficult to laugh off. For one thing, even though they don't believe that they're subject to laws, they use laws as weapons. The FBI has called sovereigns paper terrorists because they so often fight perceived enemies, generally public employees, by filing false liens, false tax documents, or spurious lawsuits. These can hurt the victim's credit, stymie attempts to sell or refinance property, and take years and thousands of legal fees to correct. Pseudo legal.
Real quick, interrupting just real quick. Good news from Pamela Hall. She has received her application, and she said she might need some help filling it out if her son doesn't understand. No problem, Pamela Hall. Congratulations, and we're here for you. Just hit us up and let us know what you need help with. We got you.
Yep.
And again, congratulations. That's Pamela Hall for doing her genealogy. If I'm right, received the application to tie back into a tribe. That's what's up.
It is what's up.
Just quick.
That's awesome. So we gotta do a community spotlight on you, Pamela Hall. Okay, so we're going back to reading the pseudo legal barrage when it comes to UCC codes. The trouble doesn't stop there. When involved in any legal matter, from pet licensing to serious criminal charges, sovereigns are known for filing legal-sounding gibberish, usually pro se, learned from other sovereigns who sell lessons in law online. Frequently, they cite the Uniform Commercial Code, Maritime Law, and the Bible. They're also known for the sheer volume of their filings, which can double the size of the normal docket. This can frustrate and delay courts as they consider the defendant's competence and otherwise try to minimize disruptions. With many court systems fighting heavy caseloads and budget cuts, these extra headaches are unwelcome. Y'all see how this is being portrayed. And though most sovereigns are not violent, there are exceptions. The FBI has declared them to be domestic terrorists because they occasionally get into armed confrontations with law enforcement. A sovereign father and son, Jerry and Joseph Kane, were responsible for the 2010 murders of two West Memphis, Arkansas police officers during what should have been a routine traffic stop. Jerry Kane was a known figure within the sovereign movement, traveling the country to sell ideas on debt elimination and stopping foreclosures. His girlfriend, Donna Lee Ray, later made news by flooding Tampa's local government with paperwork when they wanted her to get a dog license.
For a dog license.
Mm-hmm.
All this for a dog license.
Nor are officers of the court immune, says J.J. McNabb, Bethesda, Maryland. Ooh, that's not too far from where I live. Insurance analyst and litigation consultant who has tracked the sovereign movement for years. In the recent past, it's mostly been about police officers, says McNabb, who has chaired several ABA committees as an associate member. But now we're looking at judges, county clerks, prosecutors, even public defendants. Some sovereigns hold trials in their own common law courts, convicting public officials in absentia and sentencing them to death or treason. This can be seen as an indirect threat against those convicted. Whoa. Back up. This might be what it means when someone says, I don't go to courts. We hold our own courts. So, not saying that this person or anybody that talks about holding courts, I'm not accusing them of this. But this is what I'm saying. How the FBI sees it, when this information is put out, they're going to go to this or a case law concerning this. Some sovereigns hold trials in their own common law courts, convicting public officials in absentia and sentencing them to death for treason. This can be seen as an indirect threat against those convicted. Now again, if you've been talking to somebody who's talking about UCC codes and sovereignty and getting away from the government, and they're talking about holding their own court, that is a keyword or a code word. I'm not saying this to get you in trouble. I'm saying this so you will understand what you are getting into. That is a code word. It's put in parentheses. You don't have to believe me. I put the link. Matter of fact, I'm going to put the link in here again. phone conversations are recorded. I don't care what type of phone mechanism you using, whether it's a paid service, a free service, your own line trunks, or what have you. According to the Patriot Act, all information is recorded, not by the individuals or individuals receiving the calls or making the calls, but by our own government. So no one's tapping your phones except for the entities that are allowed to tap your phones. So if they hear someone talking about common law courts, that is going to cause them to further investigate. That's all I'm saying. You can feel about me how you want to, but I didn't write this document, and I'm just trying to help you out. So it says, but the violence can also be direct. Alaskans Lonnie and Karen Vernon, a couple involved in an Alaska militia run by political activist Schaefer Cox, plotted to kill a federal judge and an IRS officer who handled their tax prosecution at the behest of his friend Robert Chapman, a sovereign also known as General Chapman. Sovereign John Ridge John Ridge Emery III handed a Charlotte County, Florida traffic judge an envelope he believed contained anthrax. Sovereign citizens are not considered to be an organized group, according to Mark Potok of Southern Poverty Law Center, which tracks extremist groups. They're difficult to count because they lack a leader or a unified ideology. The SPLC roughly estimated that there are 300,000 sovereigns in the U.S. in 2011 and about a third, or 100,000, as hardcore believers, Potok says. He suspects the percentage of hardcore believers has since increased. There is still a fair amount of anecdotal evidence suggesting it is spreading. Potok says it is the single most widespread idea from the radical right. So here's the thing. I want y'all to pay attention when you're reading this and when you're listening to how the picture is being framed. Regardless of how you feel about me, regardless of how you feel about a conscious assembly, regardless of how you feel about anybody, this information is not something to be laughed at or taken lightly. We're only providing this so people can make a conscious decision, because what I don't want to happen is, by doing something you think is helping your family, you end up putting yourself in a deeper hole. So, according to the SPLC, sovereigns generally believe the legitimate U.S. government has been overthrown and replaced, perhaps during the Civil War or in 1933, when the gold standard or currency was abandoned because the country was then broke. The story goes, its leaders set up treasury accounts in the name of each baby born in the United States, permitting the government to borrow against the person's future labor. Each account is supposedly organized as a trust or a corporation. If you can legally separate this straw man account from your person, sovereign believes, you can use the money for your own purpose and put yourself outside the reach of the law. This redemption is generally accomplished by filing documents full of nonsense legalese, or often based on packages or lessons sold online. Sovereigns sometimes say that they are subject only to God's law or to common law, meaning the U.S. legal system as they believe it exists before the conspiracy. They may declare themselves independent nations, join fictional American Indian tribes, or attempt to create a replacement government with the sovereign community. I'm going to stop right there. Again, regardless of how you feel about a conscious assembly, please pay attention to this. And if this information is bogus or false or wrong, I encourage you to please provide the information that debunks this. Because what we do not want to do is spread anything that is false or harmful or will cause an unnecessary scare. So I'm going to reread that paragraph. Sovereigns sometimes say that they are subject only to God's law or to common law, meaning the U.S. legal system as they believe it exists before the conspiracy. They may declare themselves independent nations, join fictional American Indian tribes, or attempt to create replacement government with a sovereign community. Sovereigns believe official government documents with names in all capital letters refer to the strawman, which is why so many deny that they are the person named in the court documents. The strawman theory also underlies sovereigns' reliance on the Uniform Commercial Code. Since they see most legal matters as a financial transaction, government employees are in on the scam. They say, which is why they don't accept sovereign arguments and documents. The SPLC says early sovereigns were generally white people with racist beliefs. I'm gonna restate that. The SPLC says early sovereigns were generally white people with racist beliefs. For example, contending that Jews controlled the financial world or the African Americans could not be sovereigns because their citizenship was granted by the 14th Amendment. Some still hold those beliefs, but in the 21st century, adherents are diverse and not necessarily racist. They're spread over every demographic. It could be a 20-year-old black college student. It could be a 66-year-old woman, says McNabb, who is writing a book about the movement. She says a lot of law enforcement officers assume that if a person is not stereotypically militia guy, they're safe. That's not true anymore. Indeed, sovereigns now include a large contingent of African Americans, sometimes drawn from black separatist or religious movements. Patak believes as many as half of all sovereigns could be African American. In Hawaii, sovereign ideas have caught on among some native Hawaiian activists, and the ideology, McNabb, as Potok says, is spreading into other English-speaking countries. So I already know how some people might be thinking, well, we're not African American, we're Indian, we're indigenous, we're Aboriginal. It don't matter what you call yourself. Self-determination is only applied to the census. Grassroots networking. I mean, do you got anything to say about this, Bones? I mean, this is crazy.
But I don't know who they think they playing with.
So I'm gonna read this last part, and then we just, yeah.
You said self-identification is only applied to the census.
Yeah, self-identification is only applied to the census. When they say you have the right to self-identify, that's only applicable for the census because you have the opportunity to determine what your nationality or your race is or your ethnicity.
But only applying to the census.
In the census. Okay.
Nowhere in society does that work. It's only on that paper.
Now, if you're talking about what many are referred to as status correction, that's a whole nother process. Because status correction, you got to realize status correction is not just about an Indian or a Tonkinist movement. There are people that have found out that they're German or part Russian or part Chinese or Filipino. There's a process to change that status as well. And that process includes validation, genealogy. That country or an organization that's represented by that country, i.e. an embassy, saying that there's proof that this person ties in so they can be declared or deemed as such. So the same process that a Native American or anybody would have to go through is the same process that a German would have to go through or a Russian would have to go through or what have you, because they have to do their genealogy. It's going to be very difficult for you to say I'm part German and you can't tie back in. Or I'm Panamanian, you can't tie back in. They're going to ask you who your people are. So,
you think you just going to walk through the door and sit at the table? Huh?
Because now you're talking about dual citizenship. You talk about different privileges, different access to things. Like people that were born in military bases outside the United States have the opportunity for dual citizenship. But there's a process that comes with that. You just don't go to the embassy and say I was born in Germany in 1979, so therefore give you my papers. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, there's a process. That's my whole point. So what was that? Okay, it says part of the reason the ideology has spread is the availability of the internet, McNabb says. Reports say sovereign ideas are also spread in prisons. Once involved, the SPLC says new sovereigns are part of the large subculture with an active online community. They frequently learn more sovereign ideas and the sham legalese they use in court, from websites or hotel seminars selling how to kits for profit. These are also popular ways for sovereigns to sell bogus methods for filing taxes, debt, or foreclosures. The people peddling these ideas are sometimes prosecuted for fraud or tax evasion. Oh, okay. The people peddling these ideas are sometimes prosecuted for fraud or tax evasion. I just wanted to read that again. But Patak says probably the most important driving factor of this particular ideology has been the economy. He notes that the number of sovereigns has risen dramatically since 2008, when the economy started faltering. In addition to being used to fight foreclosures, sovereign ideas have been used to attempt to steal title to foreclosed properties, with widespread foreclosures and job losses. It's not hard to see the appeal of an ideology that, as Polk says, promises you something for nothing. Nevertheless, sovereign ideas can create real problems for the legal system. For one thing, even when sovereigns are generally trying to participate in the case, they are only disruptive because they believe their own legal system is the only legitimate one. And because they frequently resent authorities they feel are not legitimate, they have trouble cooperating with even the most basic of requirements. So the picture that's being painted here is that the individuals that are using these UCC codes are combatants, even if people that are using these UCC codes aren't. Perception. Gotta be very careful with that. Guilt by association. D. Lauren Washburn, a former tax prosecutor in Utah, recalls a woman who was subpoenaed to testify in an investigation of her father for tax evasion. Sovereigns have a lot of overlap with tax defiers, so tax prosecutors are familiar with the ideology. She declined to answer questions, he says. We said, are you in any way related to him? Recalls Washburn, known as shareholder of Clyde, Snow, and Sessions in Salt Lake City, and a member of the ABA section of Taxation, Civil, and Criminal Tax Penalties Subcommittee. Good grief. And I bet you that subcommittee is a nonprofit. She said, they says he's my father, but there's never been a paternity test. The woman was prosecuted for obstruction of justice, but when she got to court, she refused to admit she was the person named in the indictment. The judge jailed her for contempt of court. Believing Washburn says that an afternoon in jail would convince her to comply. Instead, it took about 3 months. So, because she refused to admit she was the person named in the indictment, she was jailed for contempt of court. So if someone's telling you by refusing to accept that name that they're just going to let you go, here's an instance of somebody being jailed. I'm just saying.
Yeah, they're gonna let you go. Right past go, don't collect $200 right to that sale.
And you can pull this court case up. All court cases, well, all United States court cases can be pulled up. The judge
Public info.
Exactly.
Don't let them fool you.
The judge was eager to let her out, but at the same time wasn't eager to encourage or indulge in any way its crazy fiction of I'm not the person because you spelled my name with capital letters, says Washburn. And as a result, she stayed in jail for months and months, and she was the mother of 5 kids. The calls from her father said, don't let them bully you. You'd rather die in jail and martyr to the United States of America than give in to this tyranny. Then you hear a phone call from her husband saying, your father's an idiot. He adds, on a personal level, you see a lot of tragedy in it. I'm going to stop right there. And I'll let y'all read the rest. So, at the end of the day, UCC codes have their use, but when misused, can get you in trouble and could potentially put you in jail.
What they doing though?
I want to reread this one portion because I think it's very important, because it covers some of the things that we've been talking about and that we've been hearing about. Sovereigns sometimes say that they are subject only to God's law or to common law, meaning the U.S. legal system as they believe it exists before the conspiracy. They may declare themselves independent nations. You know, people saying we're a nation, not a tribe. We are a nation, not a tribe. A tribe is a colonizer's word. Join fictional American Indian tribes. What is defined as a fictional Indian tribe? Can anybody take a
Making
guess?
it up as you go,
Say that again.
making it up as you go, not
So,
tying back in through no genealogy, having no ties to the tribe on no land here. You just saying because and write up your own declarations and constitutions and think that's legal.
or could it be? I'm asking a question. I'm making an accusation. If someone says I was here first, or my people was here first, and we are all related, so therefore I am a nation, that might be well, good, and true. But according to the FBI, you a terrorist.
Yep.
Those aren't my words. Join
And
fictional American Indian tribes. Go ahead, Bones.
no, you can go ahead and finish it. I'll wait till after.
Or attempt to create a replacement government within the sovereign community. Sovereign believe official government documents with names in all cap letters refer to the straw man, which is why so many deny that they are the person named in the court documents. The straw man theory also underlies sovereigns' reliance on the Uniform Commercial Code. Since they see most legal matters as financial transactions, government employees are in on the scam, they say, which is why they don't accept sovereign arguments and documents. So, I'm rereading this so that you understand the buzzwords and you understand the terminologies that people are using. We are creating a nation. We're not a tribe. Tribe is a colonizer's word. I'm indigenous. I was here first. You know, you can tie it to bones and all this other good stuff. But if you're using UCC codes and you're separating yourself from the government, TMH is not telling you this is what you are. TMH is not suggesting this is what you are. The FBI, the Secretary of State, they're saying
Homeland Security.
that you're a paper terrorist and a domestic terrorist. That's what they're saying. Not me. So you can get mad at me if you want to, but if you bad and you a wild Indian, go after them. If you bad, since you're a wild Indian, go after them, because that's what they call you. I'm not calling you that. I'm trying to warn you. So since you so bad and since you so wild and since you're a renegade, go after people that's calling you a terrorist and see what happens. I'll be waiting. I'll be watching on the sidelines. And that ends all I got to say.
And again, when we bring this information to the forefront, it's not to be taking aim at no one. It's not even about that. It's that we recognize that a lot of our people get trapped behind this and not knowing what it really is. So we make sure to bring the info to the forefront so people are aware of the consequences of the choices that they're making with this. Because we do understand a lot of our people are hurting, and the hurting is real. And people are looking for some type of relief to come from anywhere and everywhere. So it's easy to see how a lot of them can get caught and swept up in this. So we're presenting the information so people know both sides of the story. Like I said, we're not here to make you feel good. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to present the info. And as an individual, you have a choice to make. And again, this isn't our stance. We're just letting you know what the government stance is about this. They are aware. They are tracking this. They do have task forces for it. Are we telling you to be afraid? No, we're just informing you again.
I've reposted the link so that those of you who are interested in the UCC codes and are in back chats where they're talking about UCC codes, you can post this link in there for them so they can debunk this information. And I'm not saying it as a dare or to be trite, because if they have information that can debunk this, then it should be debunked. This should not be propagated or scare people into doing something that's legal. If it's legal, if it's lawful, then you should be able to debunk it. So, again, don't get mad at me. I'm not calling you a terrorist. I'm not calling you a domestic terrorist. And I'm not calling you a sovereign. The FBI is. So if you're going to bang your chest, go bang your chest after them. Don't bang your chest on me. I mean, that's if you're really a renegade or a wild Indian. I'm just saying. We'll have some more information on this tomorrow. We'll be going over what the states have said about this and how they're preparing to deal with this and what they've been doing to deal with this for the past 10 or so years. We'll talk about some of the penalties and some of the potential pitfalls. They are prepared to deal with this. They're already dealing with this. People are actually getting locked up for this. I think Bones, either you digitize it or you're digitizing it. It's going to be available on the Tax Assembly website, so people can go ahead and look at this. And if it's fraudulent and you can debunk it, please do. Please provide counterpoints. We would love to hear it. If it's not factual, then we will take it down and we will apologize. I have no problem with that. So
we're not saying that we know it all or this is the only way. We're just trying to present factual information. That's it. And if there's something wrong with it, show otherwise, and we can improve on it.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, the link's there. The case is there. You can look it up. You can look all this stuff up. And if there's a counter to it, or there was something was missing, or was misrepresented, or it was false, please by all means provide that proof that it was. Because at the end of the day, we don't need to be running around scared if there's no need to be. People don't need to be scared to use these UCC codes if it can in fact benefit them. But if it's something that could potentially harm them and their family even further, then I for one, and as a member of a Tax Assembly, I don't want to be in violation of natural law or tribal law, not doing my family any harm, not doing my relatives any harm. So that's just me. So
got that right.
So anything anybody else have? Anybody want to say? Again, I want to say congratulations to Pamela Hall for receiving the application from the tribe that she was trying to tie into. She was diligent. She reached out to them numerous times. It's been, 2 weeks? So they finally sent her an application. That's just the beginning. So we'll see what happens. We'll definitely keep you posted.
And I guess on that night, like we always say, it's always fun with the relatives. Enjoying this rising. Looking forward to tomorrow's. So until then, be blessed and peace.
Peace, y'all.